Really appreciate the opportunity to be here speaking with you guys today. This is our 6th year here at Eastern Mountain Sports, partnering with Cycle to Seacoast. It's always been a great fundraiser for the American Lung Association, and we're going to try and continue our partnership and keep it going strong for another year. As she introduced, my name is Alan Bernier. Work here at the Portsmouth location of Eastern Mountain Sports. We've been in business here for, over 20 years. And every day we outfit people for winter hiking, adventures, anything from just hiking on local trails to climbing big mountains, to even going on expeditions overseas. But no matter what your experience level is, we've definitely got people working here that can work with you and get you outfitted and get you into the proper products that are going to keep you safe, warm, and having fun out there all winter. So without further ado, the first thing that I'm going to start talking about is apparel. One of the big barriers for a lot of people getting out there in the winter is obviously the cold weather. With the cold winds comes snow, precipitation, icy trails and roads underfoot. So there's a lot going on out there that we kind of need to be aware of and planning for as we get into our winter hiking. So first things we're going to talk about is some clothing that you want to wear. So I'm going to step over here. And what we'd like to do is we want to wear something that's going to keep us warm, but also move sweat away from our body. We don't want to get that cold, clammy feeling of having something cold and wet and damp against your skin, because that's going to make you especially cold. And one of the worst things that can happen if you're out there in the winter is hypothermia, when your body temperature dips and you just can't get warm again. So one of the things that we always recommend is starting with a nice merino wool layer. So merino, it might sound like wool is itchy, but it's not. It's actually finely spun processed wool. It's going to keep you really warm, and it's really, really good at moving moisture away from your skin. It wicks. So if anybody's ever cycled or gone for a jog or even gone out skiing, you know that you do generate sweat, and you want that to move away from your skin towards the outside of the garment and eventually outside your jacket. So get that sweat away from you, keep your core temperature warm, and keep your body temperature up and keep you safe. The next layer we recommend on top of that is going to be something called a soft shell garment. Now, soft shells are great for a couple different reasons. Number one, they're great against the wind. And number two, they're actually pretty breathable. So it's kind of neat that you have a fabric that's going to stop the wind from coming in, but also let your sweat that's wicking off your wool to evaporate and move outside away. So it's all about moisture management, keeping that moisture flowing away from you. If you're a really heavy sweater, get that away. If you have a combination of something like this, you're going to be good down to about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's a great place to start right there. Now, there's going to be a lot of times in the winter when it gets colder than 20, so that's why we have these other layers to consider. One of the things I always have in my backpack is a lightweight fleece. Now, it doesn't seem like much, but a fleece in combination with wool and a soft shell is just really, really warm. Fleece is another one of those nice materials. It's made of polyester generally, and it wicks moisture away really quickly. So you've got your wool wicks to your fleece, and that moves your moisture out to your soft shell. Now, on top of that, if you get out there on a really windy day, you're going to have something called a hard shell. A hard shell garment is basically a raincoat. It's made with that waterproof Gore-Tex or non-Gore-Tex branded waterproof membrane material. This is going to prevent the wind from getting to you. It's going to prevent any snow or any rain from soaking through and getting you wet from the outside in. Now, say you get to the top of a mountain and you've got all 4 of your layers on and you're still cold. Well, the next layer, and this might seem weird to you, your next layer is your down jacket. This is going to go on the outside of all of those 4 garments. Now, you don't have to wear all 4 of them. You might just have your base layer and your soft shell, and you get a little chilled. You want to stop and have a break and have a snack or have a drink or something. You throw your hard shell on, or I'm sorry, you throw your down jacket on the outside over the top. And what's great about this is this has a water repellent coating to it, but it's made of down. And down is the warmest by weight of any material out there. So this down traps any heat that you generate inside your garment. So if you're still hot and sweaty, the down jacket is going to catch all that and keep it inside. And so you won't lose heat as quickly as you would with any of the other garments. So I know a lot of you people think down is what you wear in the winter. I mean, if that's what you're going to wear to get into your car and drive to work, that's one thing, but you don't want to be hiking with it, because hiking in down is going to generate heat so quickly that you're just going to get drenched with sweat. So you want the down as a last resort, throw it on over the top and keep yourself nice and warm. Now for your bottom layers, you've got a mixture. We could do a synthetic or a wool base layer on the bottom. EMS actually makes a couple different types. We've got heavyweight, midweight, and lightweight synthetic base layers. They're a lot less expensive than wool. So that's a really good option for keeping your lower parts warm. And then you have a soft shell outer layer pant that you can wear over your base layer. A combination like this is going to work really well. For the longest time, you can use I used to use snow pants. I would go down to the ski outlet in June when they're trying to sell everything at half price and just buy a decent pair of snow pants. They're going to be waterproof. They're going to be insulated. They're going to be a little bit bulkier than this combination here, but snow pants work great for getting out there in the snow and keeping you warm. As I mentioned, we got some other different types over here. We've got some shell pants. We've got some other synthetic tops. We just got such a wide variety of options for apparel that you can wear when you're out there hiking. And this can take place anywhere. You could be on a local trail. Say, if you're local to the Seacoast here, you could be at Mount Agamenticus. You can be in College Woods in Durham. You could be in the Belknap Range where Gunstock Mountain is. Like, there's lots of local options to get out there and explore the trails. Now, I don't know about you guys. We don't have a lot of snow this year, but that's not going to stop us. It's been pretty cold the last couple days, so find the right apparel that works for you and find a good system to keep yourself warm in these winter months. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about some other types of apparel that we wear. It's not just the clothing. We've got to have good gloves and mittens. Obviously, mittens are going to keep your hands a lot warmer than gloves are, because you can keep all your fingers together, and any warmth that your hand generates is going to be trapped inside the mitten. There are some mittens that actually have built-in liners as well. This is actually one of my favorite items here. This is the Outdoor Research Ultimate. This is a very, very, very warm mitten. I've been up Mount Washington a number of times, and this is all I need. It's got this really nice liner mitt inside. It's got Primaloft. It's got another insulated outer layer with Gore-Tex fabric on it, so you can make snowballs all day and not get your hands wet. Some other things you want to consider when you're out there. You've got these nice wool buffs that you could wear. Super warm. You could pull it all the way up to your nose and cover your nose up, or you could just leave it down by your neck. If you guys are doing it right out there, your face is covered, even if you're out in the mountains. Don't want to catch coronavirus out there. All right, so next of all, we have some footwear. You guys have probably seen these before. Nice, thick wool socks. And you got to keep in mind, whatever footwear you're wearing, you don't want it to be too thick, because something that's too thick is going to actually cut off the circulation. If it really crowds your boots or your footwear, a sock that's too thick is actually worse, because it jams it kind of cuts the blood flow off because it fills up your boot so much. So you want to make sure that the sock you get, this is about as thick as they come right here. This is a mountaineering sock from Smartwool. But Eastern Mountain Sports also makes some nice lighter weight merino wool socks. Wool is just always the way to go. It's such a magical fabric. It keeps your feet and hands, and your whole body for that matter, it keeps them warm when it's cold out, but this wool will even keep you cool if it's really, really hot out too. So wool does a great job at regulating temperature. And in a pinch, if you've got a water bottle, you could take the sock and actually cover your water bottle with it, and that insulates it and keeps the water from freezing in the wintertime. All right. So next we're going to get into footwear. Um, there's so much to talk about in terms of winter footwear, but I'm going to make it really basic right now. You want to get a pair of boots, preferably one that has insulation. And if you look closely, it'll say how many grams of thinsulate insulation your boot has. Some people don't have this issue with their feet getting cold in winter. I'm not one of them. I prefer one that has 400 grams of thinsulate. This is a model from Oboz. This is one of our top sellers here. This has 200 grams of insulation, keeps your foot toasty warm. It's got that shearling material on it, and it does a great job of keeping your feet warm. So they make special boots just for hiking in wintertime. And you don't have to go out and buy a special hiking boot. As long as you get something that works with the socks that you have, keeps your feet warm and dry, you're going to be just fine. Now, to go along with this footwear, you may want to get a pair of snowshoes. We sell a number of different types of snowshoes, but for local trails, you don't need anything too fancy. The snow generally doesn't get too deep. So there's different sizes of snowshoes for the size of every different person. So whether that's a 21-inch snowshoe or 25 or a 36 or even larger, some bigger people want to get a really big snowshoe so they can sit on top of so they can stand on top of the snow and move around a bit easier. Some of the snowshoes are even outfitted with this handy device here that pops up when you're climbing up hills. This is called an elevator. And so what it does is it actually raises your heel up. So as you're hiking uphill, your heel doesn't have to come all the way back down and creating more strain on your Achilles. So the elevator actually takes away some of that strain. And when you're done with it, you just pop it back down, just like that, and you're back to level ground. These snowshoes have cleats on the bottom, so they do a nice job of providing traction on the icy snow that we get here in New England. Another thing that's going to be really good to help you out there are trekking poles. A great set of trekking poles is going to go a long way to keeping you upright and having fun in the wintertime. Make sure you get the ones that have the snow baskets on them, because the ones that come with these little snow baskets don't really help so much when the snow gets deep. This particular model here has a shock absorber built into it. And then a quick tip is when you're putting your hand through, go up from the bottom and over the top. That's the way a cross-country skier holds it. So even if you lose your grip, it still stays close to your hand. There's one other thing I wanted to say about footwear. This has been a really popular item for winter hiking for the last few years. These are called micro spikes. You could always tell by the red straps on them, but they do a great job. What they do is they stretch right over your footwear. So even if you're just wearing a pair of sneakers on that hard, crusty snow we get out here, you stretch your micro spikes on, and if the trail is nice and flat and broken out, you can hike all day in just micro spikes with the right conditions. These things are a lifesaver. When you get out there on the ice sometimes and you can't get traction, these things are great. They help you to hike on a number of different conditions. And you could even go over, like if you want to go out on the pond, on the ice, this works really well too. There's a number of different types on the market. There's some smaller ones, there's some bigger ones. The smaller ones are actually called Nano Spikes. You can see that this is much less traction. If you're out there just jogging on the trails or on some icy roads, if you get black ice or something, these Nano Spikes are great. I'll just give you a quick picture here. These are the micros. They got the spikes on the chains on the bottom, and these are the nanos. They have little carbide nubs on the bottom that don't get dull very easily. And if you really want to get into it, we have crampons that you can put on your boots as well. This is kind of overkill. If you're in really tough alpine conditions, say you want to go up Franconia Ridge in the wintertime or Tuckerman's Ravine or something, these crampons are like knives on the bottom of your feet. They'll just grip into deeper ice, like really hard ice. You can kick into it really well, and if you lose your traction with this, you're really doing something wrong. And whenever you have crampons, you want to have an ice axe with you. But like I said, this is really kind of getting into the nitty gritty of the tougher, higher alpine hiking. So it's probably not for novices, but we service a whole bunch of different people here with different experience levels. Let's see, what else? Oh, one other thing. One thing not to forget about is bring some eye protection when you're out there. The wind can really start biting into your eyes, making you tear up in the wintertime. So you want to make sure you at least have a good pair of sunglasses that have pretty good coverage on the sides as well. You don't want to go snowblind if it's a really bright blue sky day. If you get into some really windy alpine conditions, a pair of goggles is a good option too. You'd want to look for a pair of goggles that has a 2-layer system in the lens, because the 2-layer system doesn't fog up quite as much. A single layer system, the cold air from the outside hits the warm air from your face. It really starts to fog. There are some treatments that you can use on your goggles if you want to anti-fog, but a 2-layer system does a much better job of not fogging up. Another thing I'm going to talk about real quick is backpacks and what to carry in your pack. There's lots of different packs on the market. You don't have to go out and get anything too special, but I like a pack with this style because I can do a couple things. We have water bottle pockets on the outside. If you get your water bottle, you can just quickly put it on the side here and easily access it. People do get dehydrated in the wintertime too, so hydration is important. Another thing I like with this backpack is the ability to strap on snowshoes. I usually take the lid, and I carry my snowshoes just like that. It works really well unless you're trying to go through a narrow doorway. But being able to carry your snowshoes is really important if you're going to be out there with snowshoes in the wintertime. These packs are pretty great. One other feature that this particular model has is a stretchy pouch right here. So if you have your micro spikes, you could just jam them right in there and easily access them. It's actually a lot easier than that. But yeah, these packs are pretty great. Some other things that you want to keep in your pack. First aid kit is always great to have. Hand and toe warmers are always nice to have in a pinch. You never know, you might need them. Extra pair of socks. And oh, your thermos. Forgot to mention this. You can just use a regular water bottle if you want, but as I mentioned earlier, water does tend to freeze. I like to heat my water up at least to room temperature before I put it in the water bottle, because it won't freeze quite so quickly. These thermoses are great because they do keep water hot for a long time. You could actually boil some tea or some hot chocolate in the morning and put it in here, and 4 or 5 hours later, it's still going to be nice and hot because it's got a double wall. I like this model because it has a quick and easy spout on top. When you get your gloves on or your mittens on, it's not easy to open up the top of a water bottle. So having a lid that opens up so you can access it really quickly is really important. A lot of people use those Camelbacks where you could just drink from the reservoir. Those are tough to maintain in the winter because the water tends to freeze in the tube. They do make some insulated tubes. I don't think they work that great, but one of the tricks for that is to actually blow the water back out of the tube and into your reservoir if you're going to use those in the wintertime. That way the water stays inside the reservoir and not in the tube where it's more prone to freeze. Finally, the last thing I was going to talk about is where to go hiking. Um, you don't have to go straight up to the Whites or to any big mountain range. There's lots of different ways to get outside there and stay active in the winter time. You can go up to North Conway. There's lots of different options up there, whether it's Diana's Baths or Mount Kearsarge, or you could stay local. Like I said earlier, there's lots of local places that have trails. Ideally, we'd have snow. I know it's kind of getting to be the end of January and there's no snow on the ground around here, but it's really fun to get out there and break some trail and use your tools and kind of gain some experience. I always tell people when I'm here at the store, start small. You don't have to go straight up and do a 4,000-foot mountain as your first winter hike. You could just find a local area, whether it's Wagon Hill in Durham or Mount Agamenticus up in York. There's lots of great places to get out there and learn, cut your teeth on finding a great place to practice your trekking poles, practice using snowshoes, just figuring out what to wear when it's really cold and what works best for you. So, oh, and one other thing I wanted to say. Try not to forget your map. Knowing where you are, having a map and compass and knowing how to use them, or even just an app on your cell phone is a really invaluable thing because we don't want to get anybody lost out there. Just know where you're going. Let somebody in your circle know where you're going to be so that if you do kind of show up late, at least somebody knows where you're going to be out there. There's one other thing. It's called the Hike Safe Card. If you go on the U.S. Forest Service's website, they have something called the Hike Safe Card. It kind of gives you some primers for where, what things to bring and what to know before you start hiking. And if you actually have a Hike Safe Card, the money that you spend on the card, I think it's $20 a year, goes towards search and rescue. It really helps out the fish and game, the wildlife programs that they have that funds search and rescue. So that's a good thing to have as well. And lastly, Eastern Mountain Sports has a schools program. They're based up out of North Conway. They can teach you anything from beginner snowshoeing, trekking. If you want to climb Mount Washington in the winter, they lead groups. They do backcountry skiing. So if you're interested, check out the Eastern Mountain Schools program as well. And with that being said, I don't really have anything else. I'm going to turn it over to you, Melissa, if you have any questions from our viewers.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alan. That was great. I have a few questions, and everyone, just as a reminder, if you have questions, please chat it in the box and I will ask Alan. So somebody asked, Larry asked, can you suggest a good source for winter trails in other areas? We have some people on the call that aren't necessarily from New Hampshire. They might be in Massachusetts or wherever. Is there a one-stop shop or?
Yeah, so there's lots of different places you can go across New England. If you're in the Boston area, the Blue Hills and the Lynn Fells area is really nice. North of Boston, there's Harold Parker State Forest. Out western Massachusetts, I mean, not quite western, but if you're in the Worcester area, Mount Wachusett is really nice. Watotic, lots of different places in Mass. I would look on the Department of Environmental Resources and also the trustees of the reservation web pages for Massachusetts. Vermont, the Green Mountain State, there's so many different places. It seems like every town in Vermont has a little hideaway, great place for hiking. But New Hampshire, I mean, depends what part of the state you're in. I know that out west we have the Pack-Monadnock Range, the Monadnock-Sunapee Greenway. There's lots of different trails out there. The Mid-State Trail from Massachusetts that extends up towards the border of New Hampshire. There's Oak Hill in Concord. There's so many places to go. Obviously the White Mountains. One of my favorite areas is Waterville Valley. There's lots of really nice, even beginner-friendly trails outside of the ski area at Waterville. There's the Livermore Trail, and you can go miles and miles from there and just explore some ponds that are frozen way back in the backcountry. It's really kind of cool to check out. Off the Kankomagus Highway in New Hampshire, there's plenty of trailheads there. So it depends how far you want to go and where you live, really.
Yeah, so I personally use something called the All Trails map app. and I'm just going to chat it. And it's basically, it's free. I don't know if you use that, Alan, but that's how I find all my hikes. I just say, what's there to do in this town? And then it pulls up every trail possible.
Yeah, All Trails is really neat. Some of my friends use it. It actually gives you a rating on what other people that have hiked it say. Like some people will say this trail is really difficult, so you might want to avoid that. And some people will say this other trail is really beginner friendly. So it sure is a great resource to have. I don't particularly use it because I've been hiking in these areas for so long that I could probably write my own All Trails. But
you should.
Yeah, well, I got to keep some of my secrets to myself.
Yes, that's true. So we had another question about, I don't know if it was answered, but about the mittens. You were going over what the brand was.
Yeah, so this is actually my favorite brand of mittens right here, Outdoor Research. I think I actually have 3 different models from this company. They're based out of Seattle. They do a lot of work in the Pacific Northwest, like climbing Mount Rainier and some of the big mountains out there. But one of the benefits of this company is their products have a lifetime warranty. If the rep actually told me, and I'll tell you it's true because I've done this before, if you tear this whole glove to shreds in 3 years, all you have to do is send them back the OR logo, and they'll give you full credit for the item and replace it for you. And they really do stand by their lifetime warranty. So I love these mittens. They've got this wonderfully warm Primaloft liner on the inside, which in most conditions, I'm fine just wearing this. But then when I get out up there on an exposed mountain, and the wind's blowing, I just throw the overliner on it too, and I'm good to go. This thing is, I mean, it's expensive. It's over $100, but you get what you pay for. A lifetime worth of warm hands is definitely worth it for this Outdoor Research mitten. But even Eastern Mountain Sports, I think we have our version of that mitten. This one right here, it doesn't come with that inner liner. You're gonna have to provide your own, but this one's only $50 right now. So it's a good deal as well. My fiance has these and she's always warm, so she loves them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I get cold so easily, and I learned my first time winter hiking, trying to wear gloves rather than mittens was a horrible mistake. My fingers just froze. So I completely agree with that. I was wondering if you could tell us, and again, anyone that has questions, please chat it, but I was wondering if you could give us, like, I don't know, a storytelling type of, I know you've done a lot of the 4,000 footers in the winter. Do you have a particular story where maybe there was something that was particularly challenging or exciting? Did you see a bear, a moose? I don't know, something exciting, I
Yeah,
guess.
sure, absolutely. So, I mean, I got stories. I could talk all night about this stuff, but recently, about 3 weeks ago, I went out for a winter backpacking trip, and we went into the Pemigewasset Wilderness. There's a trail called the Lincoln Woods Trail, which is just outside of Lincoln, New Hampshire, right off Route 93, and it's really beginner friendly. The trail starts out, there's a heated bathroom, so you can just warm yourself up, get all geared up there if you need to. There's a ranger station. It's got the local temperature and weather forecasts, and it goes right along the Pemigewasset Wilderness for 3 miles. And so as we hiked in, it was just a beautiful, quiet evening. The sun had already gone down. I was up there after work on Friday evening to get in there so I can get an early start on Saturday. But we hiked in, didn't see a single person. At mile 3, you cross over the river on an old bridge. It used to be a logging road back in the 1930s. So they've taken out all the railroad ties. So it's a nice, easy 3-mile warm up. And at mile 3, you can go to see Franconia Falls, which is another half mile up the river, which is a really popular spot in the summertime, but not too many people go out there in the winter. And then we went another couple miles after that, and we started to notice that there were no other tracks out there. It looked like one set of cross-country skiers had skied through, but we put our snowshoes on, and then we were breaking trail for the next 4 miles until we found our campsite. And when we got to camp, there's a really, really nice spot right next to the river, and we had to really be careful. We had our trekking poles, and we took our snowshoes off and put our micro spikes on because we had to hop across some really icy rocks. And we saw just the perfect campsite right on the other side of this river. And it was nice to have the river flowing there. Usually it's frozen, but like it's been a really warm winter so far. So we had to carefully get across this river. But all along the way, as we were breaking trail with our snowshoes, you could see snowshoe hair prints, and we even saw one set of moose prints, and thankfully they were going the other direction. But I've come face to face with a moose a number of times. They're really pretty docile creatures, beautiful big moose, but sometimes you'll find an antler out there in the snow. They tend to drop their antlers in early January. So if you get there at the right time and the right conditions, you could actually find a fresh shed. And so those moose antlers are a real treasure to find. But yeah, on this day, on that evening, we got to break trail. We were up real early in the morning and had some oatmeal and hot cocoa all fired up in the stove. And then we did a 10-mile hike from there. And we didn't see another person until we were halfway on our way out. And then we started to see all the people that didn't camp out. They had to walk all the way in. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's still people going for the summit. And we were on our way down, knowing that there's a car and eventually a hot meal waiting for us at the end of the trail. So it was a great experience. And you know, you'd be surprised if you want to do winter camping. It's really not that hard. You just have to know how to stay dry and how to set up camp and how to boil your water and treat your water so you can drink it. It's really not that bad, but it's a lot of fun when you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it sounds intimidating to me to sleep outside in the winter. I don't know if you could do like a quick overview of winter camping, not as in depth obviously, but like if I want to start winter camping, obviously the first thing I should probably do is go to EMS and say, hey, what do I need to buy?
Yeah, well, we also rent a lot of equipment too. So we rent some warm weather sleeping bags.
Oh, okay.
Getting a tent that's a pretty decent tent. We rent tents as well and backpacks, but getting a tent that's gonna, in case you get like 3 or 4 inches of snow or even more overnight, you don't want the tent to collapse on you or really get torn apart by wind. So you want a decent tent. You want a sleeping pad that insulates you against the snow underneath, and then a decently warm sleeping bag that's, you know, you're not going to be awake shivering all night. There's special stoves that they make so that the fuel doesn't freeze, and so you can boil your water, or you could even, if there's no river nearby, you could even take snow and melt snow so that you could have drinking water. And then, yeah, just getting a good down sleeping bag and a down jacket and keeping that on at camp so that you don't get too cold. And then getting up in the morning and getting moving, because when you're not moving and sweating and generating heat, you tend to get chilled pretty quickly. So yeah, you just want to get up and get something warm in you and then start moving. Don't linger around camp too long.
Perfect. See, one thing I thought of when you were talking about late at night or early in the morning, and something I always bring when I go winter hiking or summer hiking, is a headlamp or a light, because I'm like, if something happens, I get stuck out here with no light, that's going to be the pits.
Yeah, I got one of those in my little bag of tricks over here too. I usually have a couple of them in my backpack. I got a regular one and a spare, or at least some spare batteries. You'd be surprised, the batteries do tend to freeze in the really cold weather. And if you're relying on your phone's going to freeze too. So make sure you keep that pretty close to your body. The people that use a phone, the light on your phone is a spare light source. I'd be really cautious about that. That's only in like a really desperate situation you want to be doing that.
For sure. We had somebody ask, Alan is asking, is it better to get a tighter fitting soft shell jacket or one oversized to allow room for the base layer and fleece layer?
So you want a soft shell jacket that's going to be about as comfortable as wearing a regular jacket would be for you. If you like wearing tight jackets, maybe that's your thing. But if you get it a little bit looser, maybe not a full size bigger, but like I'm normally a medium, I would probably wear a medium, maybe even a large, depending on if I have a thick fleece to wear underneath it. But soft shell with a base layer is a great combination, but you do want to leave a little bit of room in case you get a thin fleece. Like this isn't a really thick fleece. I don't know if you could see it, but this is a pretty thin fleece. But this layer, I mean, I tell you, fleece does a great job of keeping you warm when you need it. And then if you're really cold, you throw the down jacket on over the top. And
Perfect.
for the down jacket, you probably do want to size up like a full size. I actually wear an extra large down jacket just because I usually wear it on the outside over my base layer, soft shell and hard shell.
Perfect. Is there a couple things that you can say, like, absolutely do not do this when you're winter hiking? It's the worst mistake ever. I mean, one that comes to mind for myself is cotton. Don't wear cotton.
Yeah, they say cotton kills for a reason.
Yeah.
When you wear a cotton t-shirt, if you sweat on that, it's a sponge. It's going to soak up water and it's not going to dry out quickly. These synthetic fabrics like polyester and wool do a really nice job of wicking and moving moisture away from you. Cotton does a really nice job of catching the water and keeping it there. So obviously don't do cotton. I'll tell you a story. I don't know if many of you saw this. This was on the news from Saturday. A couple guys, one of them was actually from the Seacoast, tried to go up and do some trail running in the snow over the past weekend, and they needed a Black Hawk helicopter from the New Hampshire National Guard to come pull them off Mount Lafayette. And what they did wrong was they thought that they could just go quickly. They didn't bring snowshoes with them. They only brought micro spikes, and they were also wearing sneakers. Now, I don't know about you, but Saturday was cold. It was like, I think it was -5 with the wind chill, and trying to go up there, I mean, I don't care what kind of socks you have on. If you're just wearing sneakers, you're just asking for some cold feet. And over time, they got stuck in some deep snow drifts because it was really windy out there, and they didn't have snowshoes with them. So they ended up having poor footwear, and they had to call for help, and they had to get the National Guard to come pull them off the mountain because not having snowshoes and not having appropriate footwear really came back to bite them.
That stinks. I can't imagine being stuck up there and freezing like that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that, one thing that also comes to mind for me, I think about it more in the summer, but like always bringing like, well, you said first aid, but some sort of bandage in case you sprain an ankle, because that would be the worst to get to the top and then you have to go all the way back down with a sprained ankle.
Yeah. A lot of times if you do have a good pair of footwear on, it's going to come up a little bit higher. So spraining an ankle with a good pair of boots on is fairly unlikely. But what I've done, I have turned an ankle a couple times and it gets a little bit sore. But what you do in that case is you just unlace it and you crank down the laces really tight. And that way you stop it from swelling. So when you have higher top, or this is called a mid-top boot. But whenever you have a boot that's a little bit higher, it can do a great job of being that ankle brace if you really need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine are pretty high, so it keeps me warm and kind of does double. Is there anything else that you can think of off the top of your head that's like a no-no if you're winter hiking that you haven't already talked about?
So one of the things I would say is always think about the worst case scenario. Like say you take a step into the river when you're out there 7 miles in the evening. Like what's going to happen? Are your boots going to freeze? Or do you have an extra pair of socks? Think about having redundancy. You want to have some kind of an extra pair of socks just in case something happens. In case you run into deep snow, you have a pair of snowshoes. If your batteries in your headlamp die, you have an extra battery or a spare. If your hands get really sweaty or if your hat gets really sweaty, this is something that a lot of people don't think of. When you're going uphill, you're sweating a lot. And oftentimes my hat is totally drenched by the time I get to the top of the mountain. So I take it off, throw it in my pack, and I put a nice dry hat on and I'm warm again. So having extras of everything from your hat to liner gloves to socks, even a dry base layer or fleece or a down jacket in your pack that you could throw on just in case of emergency. You don't want to be caught out there and not have the gear that's going to keep you warm and keep you safe. But this is all for like really longer hikes. Like if you're going out for 45 minutes in your local trail system, just you'll figure it out by yourself. You'll just kind of get your system dialed in and figure out what the appropriate apparel works best for you, what made you feel a little colder and clammier, and what moved moisture really well. And then, you know, as you get more experience, you can get out there and venture into a little bit of deeper snow and a little bit colder conditions. And, you know, you don't have to go and, like I said, you don't have to go climb a 4,000 footer for your first mountain. But as you said yourself, like even start on a 3,000 footer or start on something even smaller. Like Mount Agamenticus is only about 300 feet high. So you can certainly get a good workout over there. And that's only about 20 minutes from the store here in Portsmouth. So if we get enough snow, the sky's the limit.
For sure. We're hoping for some more snow. Brenda asked, sometimes her energy bars freeze and they're hard to eat. So do you have any good snack ideas?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been making a lot lately is homemade energy balls. And there's lots of recipes out there. If you put the right combination of peanut butter and some softer things in them, then you can make your own energy bars. Some that are going to have a better consistency. I know some people say Cliff bars taste like bricks, and you end up chewing them like bricks too when they get frozen. If you keep your food a little bit closer to your body, that helps. Another thing that I like to bring are like beef jerky or kind of, I mean, I hate to say Slim Jims, but there's more healthier versions of like beef sticks like that are really easy to chew and bite with mittened hands.
Right.
And then, I mean, you could always use like liquid energy like goos and those chomps that they have, but I do recommend keeping those close to your vest so that you can keep them warm with your body heat. If you leave them in like the top of your backpack pouch, they're going to get exposed to cold weather and they're going to freeze pretty quickly. So a lot of times I'll keep it on the inside of a pocket just inside my my jacket. It's easy to get to, and your body heat kind of keeps it warm. Same thing with my phone too. I usually keep that in a pocket really close to my body so that my body heat keeps the battery from dying quickly in the cold weather.
Awesome. So let me just check the time here. We've got about 15 more minutes. Does anyone else have any other questions for Alan? I know for myself, I was kind of curious, or rather I wanted to just say that I'm not like you, Alan. I mean, I haven't hiked a whole lot in the winter, but a few years back, I started just by going on like local trails that weren't mountains by any means. Like they were just trails, pretty flat, you know, take the snowshoes out. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's try, like he said, like a 300 footer, something not really that crazy. Because I think a lot of it for me was in my mind, it was hesitation, like that's crazy, or like, what if I, you know, freeze? And by going in baby steps, I was able to learn from experience what I need to wear and all that stuff. And then, you know, I did the Cranberry Peak in Stratton, Maine, a few weeks ago, and that's over 3,000 feet. And so, you know, yeah, it wasn't easy, but I never would have done that right off the bat. You know, I would have been too scared to do that. So I guess I think it's just important to remember that you can start small and work your way up.
Yeah, that's a really great mountain too. I don't know if you if it was very snowy when I was up there, but Cranberry Peak is on the Bigelow Range outside of Stratton, and you get such a great view from up there. I really like that one. I've been up that a couple times. I think that's even on the Appalachian Trail too. But yeah, you don't have to drive 3 hours up to Stratton, Maine to find a good place to hike. The Gunstock and the Belknap Range just outside of Wolfboro, New Hampshire, that's it's pretty mountainous, and they usually get some pretty good snow. I think that's one of the closest ski areas to here, so you can generally bet that they've got snow up there. But I mean, their mountains are 1,500 to 2,000 feet high. Piper Mountain, Belknap Mountain. There's lots of different mountains along that whole range. Mount Major, even. There's lots of places you can go and kind of get the great views and get a feel for what winter hiking is all about. And I did want to say that this doesn't have to be a super expensive hobby. If you're going to spend money, get a decent pair of boots. But other than that, you could probably find, whether it's store brand from Eastern Mountain Sports or if you go around and pick and choose, you can find some really good deals on decent soft shells or decent hard shells. The fleece that we have, you can get a fleece for $20. I mean, you probably already have a fleece that's going to keep you nice and warm. It's just a matter of do you want to get it all sweaty or not. But yeah, there's like lots of, it doesn't have to be a really intimidating, expensive hobby. We rent snowshoes, we rent backpacks. We even give you a pair of trekking poles to practice with your snowshoe rental. We don't charge extra. So there's lots of ways you can kind of figure out what works for you, try something out. Renting before you buy it is always a good idea. But yeah, like I said, if you're going to spend some money, get a good pair of socks and a good pair of footwear, and that'll take you a long way. From there, you could just add layers. If you add too many layers, if you don't have the right layers, then it's going to feel bulky. But yeah, I mean, winter hiking is the same as summer hiking. It's just colder.
Right. Dwayne asked what kind of boots are the best for snowshoeing, and I know you kind of touched on that before, but is there like a better type? Like I know my friend one time bought boots that were too thin for her snowshoes, so that became an issue.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Boots like this are going to have a little bit of a higher cut to them. So when you're actually snowshoeing, a lot of times snow gets kicked up from the back and ends up kind of catching on the back of your pant leg or even going down the back side of your boot. When you're snowshoeing, a lot of times the boot is going to have this lip back here. And the lip is really good at keeping the back of your snowshoe on and even keeping the back of your micro spikes on. And then one other thing that you can get is something called a pair of Gators. And you might have seen people wearing these. Once again, this is my favorite company, Outdoor Research. But the Gators will go on. It covers your whole shin area and your calves. There's a strap that goes underneath down here and Velcro across the front so that you can make them nice and tight, and you can tighten it up around your calf as well with the strap at the top. But Gators do a great job of keeping your extending the waterproof abilities of your boot up to your knee level. So if you are up there in the deep snow, the Gators will keep you dry. But back to the footwear for a second. Like you said, if you have a really cheap pair of shoes, sneakers, or lightweight boots that don't have a good structure to them, then the snowshoes, as you're tightening them on, can kind of bite into it. So most insulated footwear is going to have a little bit of insulation, even a little bit of padding that's going to protect you from tight snowshoe bindings. But a lot of times people think about traction on footwear. Traction is really important in the summertime, but in the wintertime, I don't think traction is very important at all because you're going to have something with giant cleats on it or even something with spikes on it. We don't really hike in just boots very much in the wintertime. I mean, if it's like now and you just have bare ground, then having a nice warm pair of boots is important. But for the most part, you don't really have to worry about the traction of your winter footwear because you're going to have snowshoes or you're going to have micro spikes on, and that stuff is going to really be the majority of your traction. When I'm winter hiking, I'm either wearing one or the other. It's very rare that I don't have some kind of traction on my feet.
Yeah, I experienced on Cranberry actually. It was not enough snow for spikes because when you're stepping on, rocks with spikes, it's really uncomfortable on your feet. But it wasn't enough snow for snowshoes either. So I was just going with my boot. But then I ran into some ice, so I was very thankful I brought the spikes. But yeah, that's kind of like the weird in between. We hope there's more snow because then you can just keep the spikes on. It'd be much easier.
Yeah, it's better for everybody. It's more fun. It's more scenic. I mean, you don't want to be out there freezing and it just looks like a dry fall day with no leaves on the trees. Having that white winter wonderland really gives you a much better experience, and it's better on your body too. A lot of the hikers that I know think winter is their favorite season because you could always add an extra layer to stay warm. And the snow does a great job of covering up the mud, covering up the rocks. When you have a nice smooth snowshoe trail, you could just go as you please. You don't have to worry about falling down and landing on rock somewhere, because everything's covered in a nice soft blanket of snow. And it's just so much more fun, and you don't have to worry about stepping in that mud puddle because it's all frozen ice, and you just go right over the top of it. And I always thought winter is the best time of year to get out there.
I completely agree. I think I never thought I would think this way, but I do think hiking in the winter is more beautiful, A, and B, better on your body. And so if you haven't tried it, you definitely should try. Stephanie asked, if you're wearing spikes, will the rocks harm them if there's not a lot of snow and just some ice?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So the spikes are actually made with this heavy duty steel chain and also some teeth um, as well. So ideally, you wouldn't step on the rocks directly. If you have a choice, stepping in the softer ground next to them, if possible, is better. But if there's snow and ice, I mean, even if there's a very, very thin layer of ice, you step right on it and you don't even notice. It's just like these things are great. They're not super sharp, but the fact that there's, I think, 14 points of contact whenever you have your foot all the way flat down, does a great job of keeping you upright. But sometimes another thing to watch out for is if the conditions are right, if it's right around freezing and there's some actual flowing water out there, if you step in water and then you step into packed snow over and over again, you keep stepping on the packed snow, the wet moisture combined with the packed snow ends up creating a big snowball on the bottom of your spikes. So you got to be careful in certain conditions. It can really ball up and get uncomfortable. And that goes for snowshoes too. So in those cases, make sure you're scuffing your feet whenever you get a chance. You find some ice, you just kind of scuff that snowball right off. Or you could always take your trekking pole and give it a whack to knock the snowballs off. But generally doesn't, stepping on rocks generally doesn't cause damage to the spikes. These micro spikes are from Catula. They come with a 2-year warranty, and it's basically no questions asked. If they break, all you got to do is send a picture to Catula over their website, and they'll send you a free pair. So it's another great company to work with. They stand by their product, and it's kind of become ubiquitous. People call them micro spikes now. That's Catula's name. There's other different models out there, and even if you went on Amazon, you could find some kind of generic no-name brands who are much cheaper, but they're all generally the same product. Catula is great because they just have a good warranty, and if you ever break them, you get a new pair just like that. They just arrive in the mail. It works pretty nicely, but they're a great tool to have. I wish we rented them, but I just think that people would abuse them too much if we rented them. I do know that there's a couple places up in Lincoln, New Hampshire that do rent micro spikes. So if you're looking, you could probably find some up there. Come on down to the store and ask, and I'll tell you the secret.
That's perfect. So we have about 5 minutes left. I want to wrap up, and thank you so much, Alan. Your knowledge, obviously you have so much knowledge about winter hiking, and I learned some things, which is always good because you never stop learning with this kind of thing. And I just want to let everyone know, if you have a question you think of after this is over, email me. I just chatted my email, and I'll get a hold of Alan, and I'm sure he's happy to answer your questions. I do want to let you know that on February 18th, we will be having another presentation similar to this, not about winter hiking per se, but just about winter activities, kind of an overview of all the things you can do in the winter. Hopefully, when we meet again on the 18th of February, we will have snow, so we'll actually be able to put into practice some of these things. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch real quick upon the Cycle the Seacoast event. So essentially, Eastern Mountain Sports partners with us, the American Lung Association, for our ride that happens every May. And it's a fundraiser for the American Lung Association. And, you know, it funds everything and to do with lungs that we do, which includes COVID-19 research, you know, everything from pollution to asthma to COPD to lung cancer. So it's really important. We really want people to join us. If you're not comfortable with coming to an in-person event on May 2nd, we also have this new virtual way to participate, which I personally did last year. It was a lot of fun. You can just step out your front door and start riding. You don't have to complete the 25, 50, or 100 miles. If you do it that way, you can do more, you can do less. It's all about community and supporting a great cause. So thanks so much, Alan, at Eastern Mountain Sports. Thank you everyone for watching. This will be recorded. I'll make sure to send it out and put it up on our Facebook page and website. So have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Melissa.
Bye, Alan.